Um, it is asking me if that I need to download an app to share my screen.
Yeah, so this is an app you've already downloaded and installed before, so that you can be the presenter.
It does not appear to be working for me. Is there a way that you can pull up the PowerPoint and I'll just let you know when to advance slides?
Sure. You only shared the PDF with me, so is that okay?
Yeah, the PDF of the slides. So that should work.
Yeah, no worries then.
There are no bells and whistles on the slide, so it is just
Okay, cool.
an image.
Okay, perfect. Then that should not be a problem. Give me just a second here, and I'm.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining. I'm Paloma, and I am in DC, and today I'm joined by Shane Barrow from ACE, who you may have communicated with, and he's here today. And this is our second welcome webinar. So the second welcome and intro webinar, and we'll have Tim pull up the PowerPoint and then get started.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Do that. Just making it so that it's not huge on everybody's screen, so give me a second here. All right, there we go.
Great, thank you. All right, so welcome everyone. Next slide. So today I wanted to talk about 3 of the CRDIP components. Your internship, which is a really big part of CRDIP, webinars, and the blog. And what's included in your internship is the work that you're doing at your site, and also the webinars and blogs, and also any surveys that ACE sends you. So ACE recently sent you a pre-internship survey, and I know some of you have already started. Some of you are starting this week. Some of you will start later. But please do fill out that survey, and that survey is sent to all interns from a lot of our NPS programs, partnership programs. So it's not just the CRDIP interns. We want to survey all of our partnership interns. So please do look at that survey. It's really short. It's easy. And return that back to ACE, to Peter. You'll also get a mid-summer evaluation and then an end of internship survey. And they're all short, and we really appreciate your feedback. And as you know, surveys help us gauge how we're doing and how you experience NPS and our partners. So please do complete that. That is part of CRDIP and a required. All right, next slide. So webinars. There aren't a whole lot of webinars, but the webinars that we do have are required. Again, they're required unless you have a planned trip for a project. If you have project travel, it is not required that you halt your project travel for the webinar. So the next webinar won't be until July 11th, and it'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern, and it'll be presented by ACE on applying for federal employment and how to create a federal resume, which we know is different than a private sector resume. And then on July 18th at 3, it is a Tuesday, so both those are Tuesdays. I'll give an introduction to the National Register, a really brief hour-long webinar on the National Register of Historic Places. Really good information to know. And then our wrap-up webinar is Thursday, August 3rd from 1 to 3. And we will share more information about presentations, but you'll be asked to upload your presentation materials to the Google Drive, which everyone should have access to by August 1st. And then we will remind you, but we do ask that you look through others' presentations before the webinar so that you can get a sense of what your fellow CRDIP interns have been working on, and if you can ask them any questions, it helps to prepare. Next slide. So blogging. Right, so we covered webinars. That is pretty straightforward, and blogging. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about our expectations of blogs and topics that can be covered. So our expectation is that you blog every 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be every other Monday, or it's just every 2 weeks for you. And then to be engaging, and we'll talk about what that means. And we want you to include pictures, because pictures are big parts of blogs. Topics. The first blog you should introduce yourself, who you are, your responsibilities during your internship, your projects, what you're doing, your experiences during the internship, anything you notice or that you can connect to. Maybe you made a connection between something you learned in school and then you found it applied at your park or in your project. And you can also blog about any of your park or program activities. If there's something going on at the park you're at that you find really neat, any partnerships that your park has that you're involved with, those are all valid topics and great topics. Next slide. The goals. Why blog? Why in the world blog? The blogs help share your internship experience with others. One of the best phrases for describing blogs and what blogs can do is that they give secondhand excitement. So in some really good blogs, you can feel the place and the power of the place and your experience there. So you want to give that secondhand excitement. You want to highlight the importance of diversity on public lands. Who you are, what you're doing on public lands. Some of you are working on really unique projects that push education about underrepresented groups and other aspects of history that people might not be aware that the Park Service is involved in. So we want to highlight the importance of diversity in our public lands. Educate, of course, increase awareness of cultural resources work, and promote CRDIP and ACE, EPIC internships. So lots of goals. Next. Okay, so tips for blogging. Post engaging information and write what you know. Don't make stuff up, obviously. Write what you know and feel and what you've experienced, and that's really the best blog. Make connections of any sort. If you've met somebody neat that you want to talk about, if you've made connections between something, again, that you learned in school or you had a class on and then you saw it applied in the field, that's a really unique point of view. Create excitement with pictures and your personality. If you found something funny, if something made you think differently about something, that's a good thing to put in a blog. And blogs don't have to be long at all. We're talking just short, like little journal entries. Journal entries for public viewing. These aren't personal journals, but they don't have to be long. a picture, and a long caption could be an entry. This doesn't have to be, these are not 5-page essays. So just something to capture a moment or a feeling is adequate. And be professional. And what I mean by that is keep the blog post to your work. We can't promote certain, this is a blog for, you know, a National Park Service program. So it needs to focus on the work and perhaps not what things might be happening in the world, although they do affect us. We want to keep it focused on our work. Yeah. Great. So I have some examples. So this is from last year's blog. This is Catherine Geraldo at Boston National Historical Park, and we have CRDIP interns there this summer. And she was part of the I Am ACE interview blog. So ACE will do some interviews of some interns, and it's under the I Am ACE kind of hashtag. And so Catherine was talking about her experience putting on a display for a display for the park, and she shared something she learned. So she learned that she says she says one of the biggest challenges is when I am tasked to find a museum object for the annual inventory, but it's nowhere to be found. It's frustrating, but you eventually realize that out of thousands of objects, some are bound to be misplaced. So that's an example of her sharing from last summer. And then another example, Rachel Stewart from Dry Tortugas. She did underwater archaeology, which was pretty darn cool. And she also did the I Am ACE interview, and she talked about joining ACE. And what struck me, what she wrote, I have had many experiences that don't necessarily match what I want to do in my career, but through these experiences, I've picked up varied skills that will help me in the future. And that's a really good attitude to have. Sometimes you do things that you don't expect your career to go on, but are still really good skills to have. And she says networking is really what has helped me the most. So good advice from Rachel from last year's crew. So how are you going to upload these blog pieces? And how are we sharing information with you? Because blogging is ultimately about sharing information with each other and to the public. So I will turn it over to Tim to show you the Google Drive for CRDIP interns.
Awesome. Thanks, Paloma. I'm going to go ahead and share first the drive. And this is what the drive should look like for all of you. You'll come to the top level here. It's called A/MPS CRDIP 2017. It's broken into 5 different folders. In the individual intern folder, you should only see one folder inside of there. That's your folder. We actually have access to all the folders so that we can go in there if we need to and help you guys, but that's just for your specific pieces of information. So if there's something that needs to be shared or something that you and us are working on collaboratively, that's where those pieces of information go in. The next folder is the group resource folder, and that's where you'll find any information that's uploaded from either from ACE or from other interns or from Paloma. You'll find a lot of the presentations will be in there. We'll put up the presentations from these as well as links to the different videos. We've been working on trying to create a way to show the different link back to the videos that we've had so far. Then you'll find the intern bios, and that's where.
Can I take this back one step?
Sure.
There was a document Paloma wanted us to note and shared from Paloma.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. I do have a document in there that I'll refer to later. It's about the NPS Ombuds, which is a new effort to collect information from employees about. Sorry about that. To collect information about related to harassment or bullying or anything related to that. They're an independent voice for employees, and so it's brand new. And so I have an FAQ sheet about the ombuds, and interns can contact them, and they are anonymous. They'll keep you anonymous, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. But that is, and I may add more resources like that on there, but I did add that to my folder for everyone.
Great. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the intern bios. And in that folder, you will find a template that you can download and look at, and it will kind of go over the areas that we're looking for to fill out your bio. As you can see, Haley's already posted hers. You can go ahead and feel free to submit yours. We generally want just the final draft in here, so if you have a kind of a rough draft and you want some help with it, make sure to put that into your own personal folder first, and then we can review that with you before you put the final copy in here. Then blog posts, as the opponent was just talking about, this is where you're going to want to put your blog posts. Just the finals again. So if you have a draft, keep it in your own folder, but then when you're ready, you can move them into this folder, and then they'll be taken and posted up on the CRDIP webpage. Make sure that when you're putting your information, especially your blog posts or your intern bios, as you can see, Haley put her name, dash, and then whatever it is. Make sure you put your name and then dash, and then if it's blog post 1, blog post date, doesn't matter, but make sure that it has your name in the title of the file that gets uploaded so we know whose is whose. And then the last is photos. So we want you to share your photos. Make sure that they're obviously appropriate photos. There's nothing inappropriate in the photo, but we just want to see what's going on with you guys. There are so many opportunities to take photos and share photos with what you're doing. Just try to keep that in the back of your mind as you're doing your internship, to take photos often and try to share, because that's the best way for others and for us to see through your eyes. So,
and ideally,
and on photos, I'd add, if you're putting photos into your blog, you can also drop them into that photos folder.
Yep.
Ideally, include your name in the file structure for the photos too, so I can follow up with you if we need a caption or more details about the photo. Cool.
So that's the folders, and then we'll talk about the Google group. So you all were or should have been invited to the 2017 CRDIP Google group. The Google group is the place where communication generally happens. So any kind of information we want to send out to you guys, or anything kind of discussions you want to have inside the group. If you want to ask questions, other interns of, hey, my partner is asking me to do this. Did they ask you to do that? Or how are things going over there? Or, hey, I found this really cool piece of information, that the Park Service people let us in on. Did you find out about this? Any kind of that kind of conversation you want to have, that's the place to do it. So there's two ways you can do it. You can actually come to the web page here, to the Google group, and just create a new topic, or you can send an email to 2017-CRDIP@googlegroups.com.
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. Yes. It's 2017-CRDIP@googlegroups.com.
And you can just type that into the email?
Yep.
Oh, great.
Yep. Just do an email, and then make sure that your subject line is the name of the topic that you want. And then what will happen is that everybody else will then get a copy of that email. So you submit it to there, and you can respond to it. So if you decide to reply to the conversation, it'll keep it tracked. Everybody else will get emailed copies, and it will also be stored here on the website. So.
Great. And I have another question. If you post a topic directly into the Google group, does it send an email notice that a new topic has been created?
Yep. Send a new topic notice to everybody that's in the group.
Great. I'm not sure I have to go back and check, but I don't recall getting the Google topics.
Okay, sure. And one thing to do too is to make sure you check your spam folder and see if the original one might have gotten there, and then just mark that as not spam, and then you'll get future ones. Because sometimes mail lists like this get tagged as spam accidentally. So
yeah, it's very possible. Okay.
Just be sure. And then, like I said, you'll be able to see, like, for example, Peter posted about the Google Drive structure, and you can see there, and you can, if you want to reply to it, just reply to it from here, or you can reply in the email, and they'll get posted here as well. We talked about the pre-internship survey, and one of the things is we actually have a Google survey that's going to be coming to you guys very, very shortly with that information for you to fill out. And it just makes it easier for us to collect the information to get it to Paloma all in kind of one batch instead of a bunch of Word documents, and it formats it a little nicer, makes it easier for you guys to fill it out. So we'll be sending that out very shortly, so we can get that taken care of. And then in here, Peter also posted where the first webinar was, and we'll have another one that'll get posted where this webinar is, so that you can go and watch it later if you need to. Or if you miss a webinar because you're in the work field, then you can come back and watch it later. So yeah, so that's Google Drive and Google Groups.
I like it. Thank you.
All right, let's go back. Okay.
Okay. So back to CRDIP, your internship. So I know some of you have already started, so you might have already spoken to your supervisor about these topics, but if you haven't, it's always a good time to do so. So talk to your supervisor about expectations, project goals, the schedule. Will your schedule match those in the office, or what are your options in terms of a schedule? Attire. Different parks have different attire, especially if you're going out to do any project work. What's the right attire? Emergency procedures. This is one that many of us are guilty of not asking. Includes the location of emergency exits and first aid. As an example for myself, we moved offices recently, and even a big organization like the Park Service moving offices, emergency procedures was not something that was communicated to us as quickly as it should have been. So this is a mistake it's easy to be made, but just keep that in mind to ask where emergency exits are and any first aid kit, Band-Aids, or if there's a health office if there is one. So make sure that you ask to speak to your supervisor about these items. Sometimes you might find that your supervisor is really busy, and if it's the case that you haven't sat down with them, ask to schedule some time to sit down and talk to them. Sometimes it might sound offensive, but it's not to just say, can we schedule some time to sit down together and talk about some of these questions and items? Sometimes that's really helpful to carve out time to talk about this, and it's okay to do so. Talk about your skills and education and what you want to gain from the internship. If there's something particular that you want to learn, and ask questions. Don't feel bad to ask questions. It's better to ask before something gets out of hand, or a mistake gets made, or you just can't proceed any further. Ask questions. Next slide. So professionalism. What I mainly just want to touch on professionalism is generational differences and what they mean for professionalism. People do talk a lot about generational differences, and sometimes they matter and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they are just vast stereotypes, and of course everyone's different and has different experiences, and keep that in mind. But I wanted to talk about generational differences as it pertains to cell phone use. Sometimes when one is on a phone, it can be interpreted as they're not paying attention, or they don't care, or they're being rude, or a host of other reasons. And so this image is from the New York Times, and it's from a recent article called "I'm Not Texting, I'm Taking Notes." And it's a really good article I found to illustrate this point of this, oh, okay. Sorry about that. And this article talks about how some a really bright young person from the Z generation, which is, so there's millennials and then the Z generation, people born, I guess they define it after 1994, how this young person was invited to a board meeting of a tech organization. I forgot the organization. And he essentially took notes on his phone. I mean, he was a bright young guy, was invited to represent young people, and he was taking notes on his phone, and somebody commented to him that he was on his phone a lot, and why was he texting? And he was really deflated after that because he was taking notes. And so just keep that in mind. And we all use phones differently. But I wanted to keep that in to let you know that that's really what I mean by generational differences. And phones are a big presence in our lives, and we use them for different reasons. And to remember that somebody may perceive your use of a phone differently. And also that communication is always in style. Doesn't matter the generation. Communication is important. Email, call if you're being late, if you're running late. It's always in style, regardless of what generation you're working with. So that's my note on that. Okay, so I do want to talk about behavior, unacceptable behavior, not just for interns of any kind, yourself, but anyone else. And sometimes issues of harassment and bullying aren't shared with interns or temporary hires, but sometimes materials from federal agencies aren't designed for interns and temporary hires. You know, we have an EEO, an Equal Employment Opportunity process to deal with issues of harassment and such, but they're only applicable to federal employees. So I want to let you know what your avenues and vehicles are should something like these behaviors happen, should you witness them. Because interns and temporary hires are more vulnerable populations, in that we mean you're not permanent, and you have different rights and procedures as non-permanent employees. So if you're not at your screen, if you're listening right now, I'll just read through these. So unacceptable behavior, we mean unwelcome physical contact, inappropriate touching, patting, pinching, punching, any kind of assault that's unwelcomed, unwelcome physical, verbal, visual, behavioral mannerisms, conduct that denigrates, shows hostility or aversion toward any individual, demeaning or exploitative behavior of either sexual or non-sexual nature, including threats of such behavior, known abuse or neglect of a child, intentional violation of any local, state, or federal law, drinking while driving or under the influence of alcohol or drugs, possession of illegal substances. And on that note of illegal substances, I just want to add that some of you might be in places where marijuana is legal in states, but on federal property it is not. So if you are on federal property, it is still not legal. And then the last one, acting in a manner deemed dangerous to the public. And these are all, they sound very legal definitions. They are legal definitions. And so these behaviors, not limited to these, will result in warnings and disciplinary actions like being removed from your internship, for sure. But again, this is for you to know that this is not acceptable from other people as well. And if you see any such behavior, report it to your supervisor. And if you don't feel comfortable with your supervisor, anyone else in authority, report it to ACE. And you can report it to myself as well. If there are situations you are unsure of what to do in, that's when you can contact the ombuds, and the FAQ sheet is in the resources file. And again, the ombuds is new, and the ombuds they accept comments from interns as well. Absolutely, and they can help you figure out what to do if you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, and they're usually really good about responding to requests. So that's also an option.
And Paloma, I just wanted to add from ACE's perspective is one of the reasons why agencies like the MPS use ACE is because we're specifically here to be your advocate. So we want to be involved in any kind of situation where you're feeling uncomfortable. We want to know about it. And the sooner we know about it, the sooner we can help you and help the partner and help everybody involved get it taken care of appropriately. It's usually the instances where people kind of don't tell us or tell anybody that we've had the biggest problems with. So
that's a good point.
Just don't be afraid to reach out to anybody, Shane or Peter or George. Don't feel afraid on, even if it feels kind of like, oh, I'm just being kind of dumb or stupid. No, don't feel that way. Please reach out to us and let us know what's going on so that we can help you through that process.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So that's good to hear. And do reach out to us. Don't let it fester, and don't let it ruin your internship experience. Because if somebody is engaging in these behaviors and you witness them, other people are likely feeling them as well as seeing them from somebody. So.
Better just say that if there's any female participants that don't want to talk to Peter or I, we have our HR person is wonderful and female as well, so you can address things directly with her as well if you're not comfortable speaking with us, and we're totally okay with that. You can even just call us and be like, hey, can I talk to Midge, your HR person?
Midge, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're your advocates. We want you to be successful. We're advocating for you both in your internship and then later afterwards as well, if we can help in any way, in ways we can. And then so my next slide is on communication. Again, email, call, emergencies. Absolutely, tell your site supervisor. And then contact ACE for emergencies. And then here is our contact information. An email is the best way to get in contact with me. And we went through what I wanted to cover. Shane, do you have any other words for? No? Okay. I know I touched on everything, but I do want to open it up to any questions that anyone has.
So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or you can send in the message, and I will read it on for everybody to hear. I guess no questions.
Well, I have a question for anyone who started. I'm interested, did anyone talk to you about emergency procedures for your office? Again, it's not something that comes up a lot, but it is a valid topic, and I'm just genuinely interested if that came up in any orientation that you might have received.
In the absence of an answer, we do have several documents we share, and I'm happy to put them prominently on our on the Google Drive group and or the Google group. They're usually along with a lot of other information right at the outset, but then as folks get enrolled, we make an effort to get that back to them, or to refresh them with that information. There is a concise safety document that outlines who to call and how to handle workers' comp concerns, things like that, as well as a PowerPoint on safety in the field. So I can reiterate those on our groups.
And then Haley posted, she said, yes, David, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, Vecchioli, the curator at Boston, informed me that he would give me emergency procedures and numbers to call. So she did get information from me.
Great, yeah, David has hosted lots of interns, and that's wonderful. That's good to hear.
She also had another question as well. She said, is there a specific date you want the first blog post to be put on the Google Drive?
Well, that will depend on when your internship starts, but we do want you to do an intro, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm interning here, a little bit about yourself, what you're looking forward to, and I'd say that can be your first entry, so, within the first 2 weeks of starting. And you could do that certainly sooner if you want. And there's no limit, too. I mean, you don't have to just do one every 2 weeks. If you want to do more, I mean, that's great. But one every 2 weeks is the good rule of thumb. So, again, it'll depend on when you start, but within your first 2 weeks. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, this is Haley. Back to the blog post. This is my second week. I figured this would be easier just to talk about it instead of message it. I started 2 weeks ago, so can I make my first blog post like at the end of this week and then have it as an introduction and like my first experience in the first 2 weeks? Is that okay?
Sure, that'll work.
Yeah. For experiences on Friday, because he does a interesting schedule where he works like extra hours 1 week and has like a day off and then works another extra hours. So he gives me things to do with the days that he has off.
Mm-hmm.
So the day he had off was last Friday, and I went around the Black Heritage Trail at Boston, and then also did a tour and went to the museum. So can I talk about things that I do for the days that I'm working / when he's off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That sounds like a great thing to highlight. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
other things that I do that involve the park, like Sail Boston, I'm doing this Sunday. I'm at an engagement table for cultural resources.
Yeah.
So I can do a blog post about that too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and blogs are a great way to show all the different things interns do and different ways that parks engage communities. So if you can blog about your experience doing that, that's great. Sometimes the best experiences and interactions come from speaking to the public about what you do and what your site is. So absolutely, those are great topics.
Okay, great.
I would look forward to reading about those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because they do this every 7 years. So you get to see tall ships from around the world coming into the Boston Harbor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I have one question. This is Janae. I'm doing it down at Salem Maritime. I already have a blog that I started for like the Salem Maritime internship I'm doing. I posted on WordPress, and I was wondering if I can use some of those posts, like because I update that weekly. I was wondering if I can put those posts onto and just put them in the Google Drive blog.
Totally. You can, if you're blogging for your park or program, you can blog again, and that'll give you and your park and program more exposure. So use that. Sure.
So would I be doing like the blog I have, like?
Yeah. You can share that in. I don't know if you need to post it in a different format on Google Drive, but just put that in your folder in Google Drive.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, just copy and paste the text that you're using on that one and paste it into the Google Drive, and then we'll paste it back. And if you can, also paste the link to the blog post on your other blog, and we'll include that as well. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? All right. With that, if there's anything else in the meantime, you know how to contact us. Feel free to contact us and communicate with other interns. Again, there's many of you in the Boston area, and I think once everyone does their bio and we post the bios, you'll see how many we have in the Northeast region. I mean, we have at least 30. I don't know percentage-wise. We have a number of you up in the Boston area, which is wonderful. And it's good for you guys to know that. So once we have the bios, you can see who else is in your cohort for this year. Thanks so much. Thank you for your time, and I will hear from you again on July 11th. And